In this video, we're going to cover 3 powerful traits that your music needs in order to stand out. And these are traits that I've seen employed by composers all over the world in their repertoire, and I try to employ as well in my music. And so I hope this video will be helpful to you and give you a couple of ideas to apply to your own music and really take it to that next level. So the very first trait I want to share is a powerful melody. Melody is king, and we know this to be true when we think about our favorite pieces of music, right? Most likely they contain a theme or a hook of some sort that keeps you coming back. And especially for lay people who don't study music for a living, or really people who don't even understand music that well, when they listen to music, the one thing that they can walk away remembering is a certain melody. They don't care about the chord progression, they might not even care about the arrangement, the textures and stuff. But if there's a certain melody that they can remember, that's the one thing they will walk away remembering and come back to when they hear the piece of music again, or if someone asks them to sing that piece of music, they can hum that melody. Of course, if you're working on sync music or like production music where the music is meant to support like a visual medium happening on screen, like maybe there's dialogue between 2 characters, then the piece of music isn't quite as important. But if we're talking about a standalone piece of music that you want to stand on its own 2 legs, then having a memorable melody will be absolutely key to making your music stand out. And if you are interested in how I personally write melodies myself and how I think about the whole composing process from start to finish, from the very first idea to the polished final master, I invite you to check out my free workshop down below in the description called the Complete Composer's Framework. I literally lay out step by step how I think about the music making process and how you can as well. So you can grab that anytime as a gift for checking out this video today. So moving on to trait number 2, and that is telling a great story. So storytelling really is one of the most powerful things that people can connect to all over the world. We love to hear how other people live their lives and do different things, and music is no exception. Now, songs have an inherent advantage in that many of them have lyrics. So the lyrical content can actually do a lot of the work when it comes to setting up the characters, the setting of the story, telling them what happens, and then by the end of it, you can have a resolved story, right? A very satisfying conclusion. But for instrumental music, where it's just the instruments and the orchestration happening, we have to do a lot of the work through contrast. Maybe we start with a certain texture, we build it up and up, more ensembles come in, there's a lot of textures happening, and then eventually it tapers down to low energy again, and the whole thing feels like it's come back down to a natural conclusion. This is very important because you don't want your piece of music to feel stagnant, right? You want it to feel like it starts somewhere, it actually develops, it has new ideas to maintain the interest of the listener, and then at the very end it feels conclusive because it's like we started with an A section, for example, to introduce some material, we develop it, and then how does it end? Well, the familiarity of the repetition of the A section will bring back that familiarity, right? It makes us feel like, okay, now we have this whole thing that's come together, and it makes sense to conclude in this way because that material we started with came back to finish it at the very end. The third trait I want to mention here is a sense of cohesion. And when I say cohesion, I basically mean you might have like separate parts, but they come together to form a unified whole, which is very important because I think some of the most powerful pieces and some of my favorites, they are contained within, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes. They really are not long-winded and drawn out unnecessarily because they understand completely like the musical message they want to deliver. They deliver it in a very compact way, and at the very end, it feels like a natural conclusion and the ending is deserved. The longer your piece is, the more stuff you have to put in it to fill up the space, and it might not even require that in the first place. You can kind of see how this goes hand in hand with trait number 2, right? The storytelling. If your musical message already has a natural story built into it, even without lyrics, if the melody seems to make sense, like it's starting from a certain place, it's developing over time, maybe there's more conflict, so there's more dissonance and tension, but then you resolve it at the very end, then that natural endpoint makes it feel like this music knows exactly what it's doing from beginning to end, and you don't need to take it any further than that. So this lends itself perfectly to the question of structure, right? Like, how are you going to form your piece so that you have a cohesive whole that feels natural all the way throughout? Some of the best forms include the ternary form or the rounded binary form, where you have the A section, then you have the B section that develops and changes things, then you have the final A section that comes back to round out the entire piece. That's a cohesive whole, right? Another one is the song form. verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. The verses serve to set up the setting of the story and develop it, like we already mentioned. The choruses develop the main idea, or deliver the main idea, I should say, and then the bridge kind of gives you a little break before diving into the final chorus. But by the end, you feel a sense of satisfaction because the whole thing feels natural. Every section feels deserved, and every section kind of built on top of the previous one. So always ask yourself, is every section in my piece of music serving the overall piece as a whole, right? Is it deserved to be in this piece? Or is it just filling up empty space and it's just feeling like it's sort of meandering? You definitely don't want that. So to put this all in perspective, let me share a piece of mine that I wrote a couple of years ago called Love's Rapture. I wanted to use other pieces like John Williams and video game scores, but because of copyright reasons, I decided to just use one of my own here. So this piece is called Love's Rapture, and as you can guess by the name, it's a more slow romantic cue. But as we listen through it, see if you can pick out how I'm trying to incorporate these three elements into the piece. A melody, a memorable melody, storytelling, and then a sense of cohesion all the way throughout. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's have a quick listen. So the melody of this piece is what determined the overall flow and structure of this piece. You might have noticed that we started off with a single viola and the piano playing the main theme, and then it develops into the full orchestra coming in. I mean, they're still playing the same theme, but because we've changed ensembles entirely, it feels like the story is moving, right? And it feels like everything is sort of developing a little bit. I also changed the chords a little bit in the full orchestral section, but the main theme is essentially the same thing. Then when the A section wraps up, the repetition of it, and then we move to the B section. So now we're taking the story even further. We're changing up the melody completely, we're changing up the chord progression, and we're also changing up the orchestration. Instead of the strings playing the melody, now it's the woodwinds. So we're changing up the feel and the colors of everything, and that feels like it's taking the story even further. And then finally, to round out the piece, I bring back the A theme one more time, but you notice that I'm also bringing the energy back down to a very low level to sort of match the A section. So that's where we get this sense of resolution. We start at a certain level, a low energy, we build and build to a high energy, even the B section is a pretty high energy, and then by the very end, we're back down to a low energy, let's say a 2 out of 10. And that's where that sense of cohesion comes in, because we've gone through this journey together, and then by the time you come back to the very end, it's like we've overcome some conflicts, right? And everything feels like a natural ending. And that's where I decided to end the piece with a small little outro. So when it comes to writing your own music, it really does not have to be complicated. One thing I'm talking about with some of my private students right now in my coaching programs is how simple can you really make your core ideas? Because if you can play, let's say, your musical ideas on the piano with two hands, let's say melody in the right hand and your chords in the left hand, and it stands out on its own as a piece of music that you can remember, you are starting from a great place. Because if you just start from a bunch of loops or drum grooves or something like that, and you don't really have an identifiable melody or chord progression, then maybe the piece of music isn't really strong to begin with. You don't really have a strong musical foundation without a strong melody and a harmony to go along with it. So try that for your next piece of music. See if you can isolate just the melody and the chords, for two hands on the piano. And if you're able to play that and it sounds great to you and you can remember it, then you know you're starting from a great place. And then you can build your orchestration, your arrangement around those musical ideas because you already have the skeleton laid out. If you like this video, if you found it valuable, please leave a like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And if you want to check out, again, my complete scoring process, the way I think about writing music from start to finish, check out the Complete Composers Framework workshop down below in the description. It's 100% free. It's an on-demand workshop, and it literally goes through my step-by-step process from start to finish. So if you want to check that out for free, I hope it adds some value to you, and you can get it down below in the description there. So thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.